afternoon. My name is Guillermo Patino. I am the chairperson designee of the New York City Loft Board. I would like to welcome you to our July 18, 2024 public hearing on the proposed amendments to the Loft Board rules entitled 29 of the Rules of the City of New York. The proposed rules amend Section 204 of the Loft Board's Rules on Housing Maintenance Standards, Section 205 of the Loft Board's Rules on Registration, and Section 211.1 of the Loft Board's Fine Schedule. These proposed rule amendments would expand the requirements for basic housing maintenance services set forth in Section 204 to include requirements to maintain the existing fire egress systems and to add provisions for enforcement of these requirements. The objective of these proposed rule amendments is to promote public safety in IMD buildings. The proposed amendments would amend Section 204A to add definitions of fire escape and fire stairway, Section 204B to require that fire egress components and pathways be maintained, Section 204E8 to include an enforcement and penalty schedule against owners who fail to comply with the obligations regarding maintenance of fire egress components and pathways, Section 204E2 to authorize additional violations if conditions related to fire egress are not corrected within 15 days after the mailing date of a violation, Section 205 to include a requirement that owners file an annual certification that fire escapes and/or fire stairways have been inspected for defects within 14 days prior to the filing of the building's registration, and Section 211.1 to include a penalty for the failure to file an annual certification for fire escapes and/or fire stairways. In accordance with the New York City Administrative Procedure Act, the text of these proposed rule changes were submitted to the New York City Department of Law for review and circulated to other city agencies that may be affected by these proposed changes. The text of the proposed amendments and notice of this public hearing were published in the City Record on June 3rd, 2024. A link to the text of the proposed changes was posted on the Law Board website and on the New York City Rules website. Anyone interested anyone intending to present oral comments today must do so in accordance with the following rules. 1. Each speaker must sign in with the Secretary of the Board. A number will be provided when you sign in with the Secretary. 2. Each speaker will be called to the podium in the order of the sign-in sheet. Please pay attention to the number you have been provided. The numbers will be called two at a time. If there's no response, the Secretary will go on to the next number. 3. To ensure that everyone who wishes to speak is provided an opportunity to do so, each speaker will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. Any speaker attempting to exceed this time limit will be interrupted and stopped. A speaker's time limit may be modified at the request of a board member. 4. Written comments regarding these proposed rule changes may be submitted to the Secretary of the Board today, emailed to New York City Loft Board at buildings.nyc.gov, or mailed to the New York City Loft Board at 280 Broadway, 5th floor, New York, New York, zip code 10007. All written comments submitted by July 25, 2024, together with a memo summarizing the oral public comments received at today's hearing, will be on file at the Loft Board's office and available for public review. Now I'll call up speaker number 1 for their testimony.
Better? Much better. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Block. I work at Fort Wilstein, Alshore, Nancy Boydell. We represent IMD owners. And I just have a few comments, especially given that I only have 3 minutes. So I'll try to go in order. First, it's just sort of a general comment. We understand, as attorneys representing owners, the Loft Board's concerns about safety conditions, particularly in the last few months with respect to fire egress. So we understand the import and the reason for the proposed rules, but there are a few issues that we see with them. First, generally, obviously, all of these issues are covered by FDNY and DOB regulations already, so we want to ensure that owners are not going to be double penalized or double assessed for violations that could already be assessed by the fire department or by DOB. It's more of an administrative issue. As far as the actual proposed amendments, one issue that we see with the proposal versus the Loft Board's current regulations is access. Most of these requirements deal with the outside of the building, exterior issues, but for example, the new proposed 2-04-11 sub I sub E deals with obstruction to the fire escape from the inside of the unit, where the owner is required to do work to comply with that section. They may have to go into the tenant's unit, and under the current access regime under loft board regulations, that can be difficult. And where the owner is expected to make changes or comply with these regulations, but they're only able to get access in, say, 6 months based on a loft board access application, that's not going to work. So we're suggesting either a modification to that requirement, or maybe a separate access regime for fire life safety issues where the loft board can more firmly say the tenant has to provide access. The other, I guess, main issue, personal property. Obviously, tenants are responsible already for not causing violations of either FDNY, HFC, DOB regulations, and we just think that the notice provisions that are being drafted here could be cleaned up a little bit to make it a little bit clearer. And lastly, as far as the certification, we just think that 14 days, having a 14-day window for that inspection prior to July 1st of any given year is probably onerous. I think we all know that there are only about, let's say, 5-6 architects that really practice before the loft board and are familiar with loft board issues. Suggesting that every IMD owner will be able to get, can I just finish my sentence? Just suggesting that every IMD owner across the city will be able to have an engineer perform an inspection, get a report done, all within 14 days prior to the annual filing. It seems tough, so we'd ask that that be changed to at least 30 days to provide owners a little more time for that. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. My name is McDavid Moore. I'm an IMD tenant, member of New York City Loft Tenants. I want to applaud you guys for these regulations. I think that they're great. It really gets to the heart of what the loft law is all about, creating fire-safe spaces in former manufacturing units. I think that the only thing I see as a problem is I think the fine schedule could be more aggressive because this is, owners are supposed to ensure this kind of fire safety. These regulations exist outside of the loft board, but I feel like $5,000 might not be enough to cause people to change. Yeah, so I think that these rules seem reasonable and in line with what the loft law has been doing since 1982. So, thank you. I also just wanted to say that, that every case that comes before you does represent somebody's home, and that, that sometimes it can get lost in here, but, often there are not a lot of tenants here to see the work that you guys do, which we all really appreciate. But I just wanted to remind everybody that it is people's homes. So thank you for the hard work you do. Thank you for letting me speak.
Would you finish your comments since there's time?
I comment, I guess, a little more on the, I do think there's issues with the way that the notice provision is written regarding personal property. And you know, I haven't, to be honest, I only got this morning because whatever. But, you know, I just think that this creates issues where, you know, we're putting the responsibility for removing these items onto owners, and that's going to create inevitably that's going to create a problem where a tenant is not going to like the way that it was done, where the things were stored, how they were stored, even if an owner complies with what is a pretty bare bones outline of requirements here. So we were discussing, would it be better if that notice came directly from the loft board? If the owner notifies the loft board there's an issue with egress, and the loft board issues that order, or the loft board issues a notice, because, you know, being an owner's attorney, we send notices all the time to tenants, and they have a section of loft board regulations on top. It doesn't mean that the tenants will comply, and we'd rather, you know, it is a fire safety issue, and we'd rather have it resolved, but we don't want to have a situation or a regime where, you know, owners are responsible for removing property, and then tenants come back and they say, where's my property? And the owner says, well, I disposed of it after 60 days in accordance with the loft board regulations. I don't think that's a very good result for either side. And just on the language of it, it says owner may remove the items from the pathway 10 days after service is deemed complete and may discard any remaining items after 60 days from service. Is it 60 days from the initial service, which is 35 days after service is deemed complete? Could just be a little clearer. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
This would apply to anyone who testifies. You have a week to expand on your observations and submit comments in writing. So, you know, you've just seen these now, and as you bat them around with your colleagues, have other points or want to elaborate, we would certainly welcome.
Okay, we'll probably put in written comment. I wasn't sure what the deadline was and just wanted to say something. Okay. Thank you.
Just as a reminder, everyone will be accepting written comments until July 25th. Those can be submitted directly to the Loft Board at New York City Loft Board at buildings.nyc.gov, or mailed to the New York City Loft Board, or they could also be submitted to the New York City Rules website. So with that, we'll conclude our July 18, 2024 public hearing. Our next public meeting will be on September 19, 2024, here at 22 Reed Street at 2 p.m. Thank you, everyone.